Hello and happy Thursday. Welcome to today's live with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie and I am a partner here at Purse Strings. We are all about providing financial education, knowledge, know-how to our communities of women. And then when you are ready to go, if you get a windfall, if you get divorced, if you're, need an attorney, if you need a financial professional, we have top tier financial professionals willing, ready, and able to serve our female market. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and Brooklyn here is one of them. So we're so excited to have you on today, Brooklyn.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Before we dive into this, post-divorce kind of money and rebuilding, could we get a little intro about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Brooklynn Chandler Willy. I own a wealth management firm that's headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. We also have satellite office in a small town near us called New Braunfels. I started this firm in January of 2008. Prior to this, which it's gone by fast, but prior to starting Texas Financial Advisory, my educational background, I went to Baylor for my undergrad and then St. Mary's Law School, got my law degree. And when you go to law school, you're supposed to be a lawyer. So went through that process and never really was happy. Just not my cup of tea. And but being in the law firm opened my eyes to, ways to think outside the box as far as how to use my law degree. And so the firm I was with primarily did divorces and personal injury type criminal. It was a hodgepodge. And to make extra money, we would offer wills and trusts services to like financial planners around town. And so that bridge, again, introduced me to the financial aspect. And I really, really enjoyed that. And, thought it'd be great to start my own business, and did that January 2008, which ended up being a crazy market ride for the first 2 years. Although I didn't know any better. So it was like, that was my normal. And anyhow, but here we are. I am a CDFA. Really like helping folks through that divorce process. I did see when I was at a traditional law firm, how attorneys, again, they don't understand the makeup of the investments unless they personally own something. And so there are many times that I saw women in particular get burned financially in the divorce because they just didn't have the educational background. They weren't as involved in the investments and what have you while they were married. And so, that a lot of times they're more emotionally drawn to, say, the house, because that's their emotional tie. And keeping the house was not a necessary benefit for them versus, say, getting a bigger share of stock or something where they could go get a better house. So that's what I like in being on the CDFA side, is that I can do that, help clients navigate it. The other thing I find that is many times when people already have a financial advisor and then they go through a divorce, that financial advisor's in a predicament because or typically he, but majority of the time they represent, both the husband and wife as a financial planner. And so it doesn't mean that both ex-husband, ex-wife they can continue to use the same person, but many times they don't want to. So you've got at least one party in the divorce that needs, a new advisor.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you on today and with all of your expertise. Just so people, who haven't heard of it, a CDFA is a certified divorce financial analyst. So they're someone who is well equipped in the divorce space and really knows a deep dive of those financials, which is super helpful in that divorce process. And so today we're going to talk about kind of rebuilding post-divorce. So I'm just going to let you take it away, Brooklyn.
Okay. And just for clarification, like if there's any questions, you'll let me know.
Yep, I'll jump in.
Okay. So feel free to put anything in the chat, and I'll try and answer it from there. Another, just kind of as a caveat from a compliance aspect, sometimes what I'm saying is very general, and even if you post a specific question, I may not be able to answer it without asking you a lot of questions. So you can always email me as well, Brooklyn at texasfinancialadvisory.com, and Brooklyn does have 2 N's at it. So just make sure you get that correct. But, really in that post-divorce, like, you've been through this traumatic event, more than likely your marriage was not in great shape prior to the divorce. Sometimes the divorce can take a very long time. And, I've had some clients that do somewhat of like a divorce celebration. I think that's okay. Like, there's an emotional component that you've got to wrap your brain around before you start diving into the financial numbers, if you will, whether you got money from from the divorce, or maybe you don't have money after the divorce and you're trying to figure out, what do I do to rebuild, save for retirement, that type of thing. So, first of all, we want to make sure you are ready to walk into this next phase of your life emotionally. It's not a race, right? I feel like people put a lot of pressure on themselves to, now that they're divorced, everything should just be great. And I will tell you, it's probably not going to be. It's going to get maybe even worse before it gets better. So we want to make sure that you mentally are there. But that also leads me to, you don't want to make a bunch of big decisions fast. Let's start with like the little stuff. And even getting a new email address is really important, because maybe you left behind a computer that had your old email address on it, and there's privacy things. Hopefully you've changed that during the divorce. So one of the first things I was at the law firm, that we'd see people not think about is you need to get a new email address. But a few things that you want to just kind of have as a checklist, if you will. If you've changed your name, more than likely going through divorce, you as a female are going to not have the same last name. Many times I see women that have kids, young school age kids that have that last name. They want to hold on to that last name. That's fine too. But, even if you don't change your last name, there's still things that you need to do as far as changing names on accounts. First and foremost is, if you have not changed the beneficiary of, say, your life insurance policy, beneficiaries trump any sort of estate planning document. So beneficiaries on investment accounts, beneficiaries on life insurance, bank accounts. If your ex-spouse is still listed as the beneficiary and you pass away, it doesn't matter if y'all divorced a day ago or 10 years ago, that ex-spouse will get those benefits. I don't care if your will says it should go to your new spouse or, your sister or something. It will go the way of the beneficiary form. So that's super crucial. If you were going through a divorce, still, or even post-divorce, because again, I worked for an attorney one time, and he said, listen, the courthouse is always open. Not that people like it, but there's stuff that comes up even after you get divorced that you may have to go back for. More often than not, it's because of custody issues, but there could be some post-settlement issues that need to be addressed again. Or if you found out there was an asset that wasn't handled during the divorce, that you've got to get fixed. So, but it's implementing the settlement agreement, because that paperwork is only as good as paper. If you get granted assets in that settlement agreement, they need to, it doesn't just automatically happen, right? So there's still a transition process of getting the assets out and then into your name or into a separate account. That is something you can do on your own, but a financial advisor typically is more skilled in that and can help you, especially if there's like a tax consequence. Don't want to do something and then get a surprise tax bill as well.
That's a great point, because I think a lot of times people think the papers are kind of signed and that's that, but it actually, the action needs to be taken, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
It's not just ending after, a signing.
So I would say the first 6 months post your divorce is, don't make big decisions, but make really decisions that are going to give you more control, right? So the name thing is one. If you're going to change your name, you got to start changing it on the accounts. You want to check your credit and make sure that your ex-spouse is not on any credit cards, because if you were taken off an account, like say you had a joint American Express or something, it sometimes it takes both parties notifying the credit card company that you're to be removed or you're not liable for some of the charges. So just because it was granted, that credit card or that debt was granted to the ex-spouse in the settlement agreement, doesn't mean you just wait for him to fix it, or you still have to take action. And every institution is different, right? Banks have different formats. Sometimes to get your name off a joint account, you both have to go together. It's gotten a little bit better post COVID that these banks are a little more flexible because they don't even have staff anymore in their bank. I mean, so it's you got to go through those lists, right? And you want to check, if you haven't checked your credit during the divorce. Most people do. Don't be surprised if your credit score drops significantly post a divorce. It's not a reflection on you. I don't know why that happens. I'm not in the credit world. I know there's other experts in the credit world through purse strings, but it just happens. It'll come back up. But that leads me to your living arrangements, right? So if you're going to need to have your credit ran to be able to rent an apartment or buy a house, you're probably not going to have the best credit right after your divorce. So if you're able to start that before your divorce, better. But it's not just because your credit score goes down, it's not forever. It can come right back up. It's a process. So the other thing that you need to know, again, there's the big name change as far as like Social Security, just kind of like when you got divorced or married and you had to go in. And I know when I got married, that was like a really hard thing for me, because I'm like, this is my name and this is a lot of work to go and change it. And so I didn't really change it, I guess. You see, I use my full name, but I still use Chandler. That was my maiden name. And so, but your passport, your Social Security, your employer, same thing. Want to change that with your employers, depending on where you work. Taxes are something else that you need to be aware of. Come tax season, more than likely you've been through a tax season during the divorce. There's only been about 3 divorces I've seen that were done from start to finish in 60 days.
Wow.
I know, but so most divorces last a while, right? I've seen some divorces last longer than the marriage did.
Which is also wild.
So taxes are something that needs to be addressed if it hasn't been addressed during the divorce, because filing the next year is going to be different. You may be able to be head of household if you have children. You may be filing single, and you need to know that your tax bracket more than likely is going to change because of you're now single. So you may be paying more tax than you were while you were married. So just don't want you to have, you're going to have a lot of surprises. So if I can give you some sort of buffer, that's a little bit better than constant feeling like you're getting like a whack-a-mole hit on the head. So I touched on insurance, right, with life insurance, but of course there's property and casualty insurance that needs to be addressed, your car insurance, your house insurance, umbrella insurance, health insurance, all of those things, you've got to go through that process. Whether it's changing it to because you're the owner of it or getting a new policy in your name. That's something to be aware of. Eventually, there's estate planning issues as far as setting up a new will, power of attorney. Depending on how contentious your divorce is, if your power of attorney says that your then husband, now ex-husband, and you're in a car wreck, that's who gets to make all the calls because you didn't change your power of attorney. So we want to change things. And again, these are just documents that hopefully you'll never need, but might as well just get them done. And then if you meet and marry someone later, you can change them again. But let's see. Just going through my list here. I guess moving on to like investments, if you were to get anything through the divorce, something that I see happen very often is there's not a quadro or a qualified domestic relations order put in play at the settlement hearing. I will say sometimes I think it's a way for attorneys to get their bill paid. So they don't finish that up because you owe them money, but you can't get the access to the retirement accounts without it. So just be aware of that.
Could you dive in a little bit and explain what a quadro is?
Sure. So qualified domestic relationship relations order is basically a way for you to access what you've been granted in the divorce from the other spouse's retirement accounts. So their 401k, their pension, their 403b, thrift savings plan. Those institutions are not going to release funds to you just because you call them up and say, I'm divorced and here's my settlement agreement. You have to have this judge signed qualified domestic relation agreement that a judge has determined, yes, you were ordered 50% of the 401k based upon this date. Again, there's schools of thought of like if the market's down and you're not able to move that like kind, do you wait? I don't think you should wait. I mean, if the market's down, get it over in your name. That way you can invest it the way you want to invest it.
Right.
And you have control over the assets. So, doesn't mean you have to start investing, but just start gathering everything.
Take what's yours.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. If you do inherit debt through the divorce, it's not the end of the world. Just want to come up with kind of a debt plan, how to unwind that, whether you can like refinance it or if it's credit card debt, shift it to a 0% credit card. If I'm not a big fan of the word budget because it's like the word diet when you're trying to lose weight. If you're like, oh, you want to diet, well, all of a sudden you gain 10 pounds because your brain's like, no.
Yeah, right.
So I like to call it spending plan. We want to put together a spending plan. Like you've got this much money coming in. Here's how you get to spend it. And in that spending plan, we talk about savings. So, there's a lot of technology tools that you could use to help do this. You don't have to go old school and, write it all out. So that's really awesome about the financial industry. It's really advanced as far as like apps. Personally, I use an app called Rocket Money No,
Cool.
the little plug for them. I don't get anything from it, but I think it's a good tool. You link your bank accounts, your credit cards to it. The big thing that's helped me is those stupid subscription services that you sign up for and you forget to cancel, or you didn't even realize that you were on a subscription service. It notifies you like, hey, in 30 days, your Instacart $99 renewal is happening. And I'm like, what? When did I use Instacart? Oh, I used it in 2018 and it's now 2022 and I've spent $100 renewing this Instacart. Didn't even know I had it. So
Yeah.
um, that's a good tool because it's one of the only ones I've found that can like tell you in advance. I don't know how I guess they're reading your historical patterns. So
And that's a great one. I use Copilot. I really love it. It helps you just kind of, set your budget of what you're going to spend every month and categorizes it for you. So it's nice to see
yeah,
what bucket everything went into.
right. Were there any questions yet?
Let me check. I didn't see any come in yet, but I know a question that sometimes I do get is, there is, let's say, 10 grand of credit card debt that was, he said that, or I'm just going to use he and she right now, but that, the husband said that was going to be his debt to pay off, but it was not being paid, and that affected then her credit score. So how do you go about something like that,
So again, that's where being proactive with the credit card companies. I mean, you're not going to be their first rodeo. They've got plenty of people that have gotten divorced as debtors. Um, Now they want to get paid, right? So if your ex-spouse stops paying, they could start harassing you to pay it. But again, if it's been ordered in your settlement decree and it's not your responsibility, even though it was joint property as far as accumulated debt, so you just have to be really in active communication, save all correspondence, make them put it in writing. Don't
Mhm.
just talk to the 1-800 person. Even if they say, oh, no problem, we'll remove you. Well, great. Send me a written confirmation, email it, mail it to me, because if that doesn't happen, now you have it. Look, I notified you. I offered to give you my settlement agreement, and here's the phone conversation, codified by
Right.
this email, so that you can be in control of it, and get ahead of it, because obviously when something hits your credit score, it goes on fast, but it comes off slow. So
Mhm.
medical debt is something else. Any like hospital bills that just weren't taken care of, going on your credit. Um, but again, you just have to be diligent in that. And and same thing while you're married. I mean, that is things you need to be aware of. And
Mhm.
that leads me to remarriage. A lot of people go back at it again.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure things are kind of put together, because if you put the Humpty Dumpty back together again, you don't want, you're a little fragile. But we want to make sure when you go into your new relationship that eyes wide open, make sure we have everything in place.
Mhm.
Not trying to be cynical, but again, you can only protect yourself. You can only help yourself.
Yeah, it seems, a lot of this, once you're coming out after this divorce, it's a lot about being proactive for yourself. So making sure your name is changed or on your beneficiaries and things like that, on your life insurance. And yeah, just being really proactive. And I know then sometimes even for the second marriage, if you do decide to get married again, you have to make sure that some of those beneficiaries are still going to the right place. In case you want certain money just to go to your kids instead of the new husband or their kids or something like that as well.
Right. And um, I get asked about prenups quite a bit, and it's a piece of paper. A prenup does set your intentions on, if you were to get divorced, how things would go. Um, so I would say if your new spouse requests that you sign one, don't be offended.
Yeah.
and you should think about why it's going to protect you. There are other ways that you could do it with, maybe not as harsh as a prenup. I think it's maybe in Texas and just in little, we're in the Bible Belt here. People kind of are already feel bad they got divorced, or not to get religious or anything, but so then when we talk about a prenup, it's like, well, that's my intent to get divorced. Well,
Right.
you can do your own estate planning. Maybe you have your own trust set aside that's just your trust, and it's dedicated to your beneficiaries. And then from there, that allows for, even if you have community property in the marriage, that your spouse signs off that even though this is community property assets, my spouse, can give her 50% to whoever she wants through her trust. So, um, I think working with a professional, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's going to cost me a lot of money because you just spent a lot of money through divorce, and it's emotionally taxing and financially taxing. But working with the right professional after the divorce, even if it does cost you money, it should bring more value,
Right.
and save you money in the long run, uh, because they've seen it with other clients. And so, they have that experience, and there's no real blinders on for them. There shouldn't be. And so they can help guide you and help you avoid making mistakes you don't even know you're making.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So you might as well hire a professional. We always say you don't cut your own hair, you don't drill your own teeth. So have someone help you with the finances as well, because that way you're in the best position. And typically, they'll help you save money or make money in areas that you weren't aware about. And so really, it's worth the money spending on a professional.
Yeah, and I think that in my industry, there is a lot of tools, right? We've already talked about technological tools that you can use. So people think, well, I can just do it myself. I can open a Vanguard account or a Fidelity account. I can just take care of it myself. But um, you know, if you're a nurse, you're good at being a nurse. It's
Right.
knowing all the ins and outs of the financial product world. There's no way you could do it. There's all these studies that say working with a primarily like an independent fiduciary based advisor is, you know, that those clients end up with significantly more money saved, have a lot more confidence in their plans than those that just are trying to do it on their own.
And we're all busy. So there's no reason to take it to reinvent the wheel, as they say, just so that's why we work on finding great professionals, that want to serve women and really help women, because we know they can be very helpful and really, really positively impact your financial future.
Yeah. And you give yourself some grace. It's going to take
Mhm.
time. It's not going to be perfect. I've seen people all over the map. I've seen those that were like totally euphoric after the divorce, and sometimes being that way versus someone that's kind of beat down and depressed. That if euphoric folks, sometimes they're like overly confident and they overly commit to things, and they're too like. So we got to just kind of neutralize things. Um, and so, again, it's finding the right professional to help you. And, I say this all the time about our people that come and interview us. Maybe we're not the right fit, but we do know other folks that we could refer you to. Um, and, you know, again, our hope at Texas Financial Advisory is that we can, help you get you eventually to and through retirement, because
Mhm.
that's everyone's ultimate goal, is to be voluntarily unemployed, right? Like, just living off your investments.
Sounds wonderful. Well, I think you provided a ton of great information today, for those who are kind of rebuilding after the divorce. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't touched on?
I encourage you to go to our website, texasfinancialadvisory.com. There's a lot of just kind of general information there, but go there, and if you've got any questions, shoot me an email. Happy to help.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on and providing this education. Brooklyn's email has been going through the bottom, so you can reach out to her that way. She's one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can reach out to her on our site, pursestrings.co. And we'll be back here again in a couple of weeks with some more information. But yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to Brooklyn, reach out to Purse Strings. We're happy to help you. So let's go be financially fearless.
Thank you.